How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we got a story time of a teacher who ends up failing their student on an exam, not because they're wrong, because the student actually goes back, checks all the answers, and realizes that all the answers are actually correct, but fails the student because they are a guy, which is not made clear initially, but the teacher accidentally exposes themselves. And it's a pretty interesting story, so sit back, relax. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Leave a like on the video to claim your free nothing. With that all being said, let's just jump right into it. Yeah, so anyways, right, sure enough, the subscriber, he was in school. And this was one of the first days of ninth grade, or freshman year, or whatever you want to call it. And so he was in this math class. And so anyways, well, here's a little thing about math. It is fairly subjective. Teachers can choose if they want to give you a little bit more extra credit, if they want to go very strictly, you got the answer wrong or you got the answer right. But it's nothing like English or history or a lot of other disciplines where a lot of times, unless it's you have to memorize a certain fact, a lot of times you can get away with a much wider range of answers. And sometimes you can even argue an answer. And if your logic makes sense, sometimes a teacher will even add that answer to an acceptable answer list where it wasn't there before. However, with math, unless you're discovering an issue with a fundamental theorem, which if you do, then maybe you should consider a career in fundamental physics or something. But otherwise, mostly with math, you're either right or wrong. So this story all starts when the subscriber is taking a math test by one of his teachers. So this teacher, we're just going to call her, what should we call her? We're going to call her Miss Twitter. Yeah, we're going to call her Miss Twitter. And Miss Twitter was I don't want to stereotype anyone, but her hair, she was the standard. She got the blue hair dye. And if you guys have colored hair, that's fine. I think that's a way to express yourself. I'm not trying to do that personally, but I have no issue with it. However, there is definitely a correlation between hair color blue, Twitter usage, and the following, right? So yeah, anyways, the subscriber has had an interesting time with Miss Twitter being, his teacher. The thing is, since it's a math class and not a discussion-based class, there isn't really a lot of room for her to, try and instill ideology or push anything or something like that. However, that apparently doesn't stop Miss Twitter, as we will all see. So anyways, the subscriber sits down to take his math exam. So he sits down and starts leafing through the exam and starts solving the problems. The subscriber is actually pretty good at math, and the exam was not necessarily that hard. Or at least he studied appropriately. Maybe it would have been really hard if he didn't put his effort in, or he didn't put effort in. But anyways, right, he more or less breezes through the exam, checks over his answers, and eventually hands it in and is done. So about a week later, they get their exam grades back. And so I don't know if you guys use Canvas or something similar, but Canvas or a similar app is basically it's almost like a teacher portal type thing. You can go on there. Sometimes teachers post quizzes, sometimes they post announcements, sometimes there's little group works. But one thing, at least when I use Canvas, a big part of it is the fact that your grades are actually, they're normally posted on there. So I, whenever I receive the Canvas notification, something was just graded, dude, my freaking heart always drops. That is so scary every single time. So sure enough, the subscriber gets the Canvas notification grade, and it is a 57 out of 100. And if you don't know, that's not very good. That's around a fail, and that was completely shocking. Look, if the subscriber completely bombed the exam and he just knew that he completely bombed the exam, it wouldn't be as big of an issue because, the subscriber kind of knew what he was getting into going into it. However, this was not the case here because the subscriber was fairly convinced that he was actually going to score a very high 90 if not get anything wrong. He was maybe expecting him to make a few mini errors, but a 57 is not a few little errors. That's the whole thing is errors. Yeah, so obviously the subscriber is a little bit thrown off by this, and when he gets over to class, and the teacher goes around handing back the exams. So the subscriber picks up the exam and is going through it, and it's just really not clear what is wrong. But at this point, they're starting class kind of soon, so it's not as if, it's not as if they can go, the subscriber can really go through and check the answers over that closely. At the end of the day, he just needs to do it later. So he's kind of distracted all of class. He's trying to pay attention. And he does want to meet with the teacher. He does want to like meet with the teacher to understand what went wrong and what he can do better next time, because whenever you completely flub an exam, if there isn't an external reason, like I straight up didn't study, right? Okay. You're not going to go to the teacher and find a solution. The solution there is you got to study, right? But maybe, especially in situations where it's just like you did put in some effort and just the results were just not what you're expecting, it's not a bad idea to go to the teacher to kind of get a game plan going, if that makes sense. But the subscriber, before doing that, wanted to go and basically wanted to go over the answers to see if he could figure out what went wrong at home. So the subscriber brings his test back home, sits down in his chair, and goes over every single problem. The thing that's weird is, as the subscriber's going through, he doesn't see a single mistake. First of all, the teacher hasn't underlined anything, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. Normally, teachers give fairly extensive, if not some, feedback on exams, but there are situations where teachers will just give you a grade, which is not great, right? That's pretty bad. But especially in math, the grade would normally reflect, oh, I don't know, you got X number of problems wrong, or you got X percentage of problems wrong, or something like that. I don't really know. And but in this situation, he was going through, and it looks like he got nothing wrong, but he still got a 57%, because it said 57 on the top of his page. You guys might have thought for a second, oh, it's probably a Canvas notification error. Like, maybe she entered the grade in on Canvas wrong, and it's actually like a 97. No, it was a 57 on Canvas, and it was a 57 when he received it in person. So very clearly it was a 57. So at this point, the subscriber's like, okay, maybe I'm just fundamentally making errors. So he finds an online calculator, plugs in these problems, and as he's going through, he's finding out that no, the online calculator also agrees with him. Every single answer he put in was correct. Yeah, so anyways, right, at this point, the subscriber's like really confused. So he goes downstairs and he finds his parents, and he's like, look, guys, like, what's going on here? So his dad's like, oh, like, you failed the assignment? Like, that's pretty tough. He's like, yeah, but look at this. So him and his dad, whose dad's like, I don't know, he's like good at math or something, goes through all the problems, and also shows all the calculator answers where the calculator is saying he's right. So he's really confused at this point. He has no idea what's going on. And his dad's like, look, I think your teacher might have, I don't know, maybe the teacher is being sloppy and didn't realize, maybe the teacher's making an error. This very clearly doesn't make sense. You should go find your teacher and go talk to them. So anyways, right, sure enough, the next day, the subscriber is like, goes up to the teacher at the end of class and is like, hey, can we talk about my test? The teacher almost has this like smug look on her face. It's very, very weird. So the subscriber is a little bit taken aback by that, but it's like, all right, like, okay. And so sure enough, the teacher's like, yeah, sure. Like, meet me like after school. Maybe school ends at 3, meet me at 3:05 in my classroom. Something like that. But once again, the teacher had this weirdly smug look on her face. It just didn't make a lot of sense. Like, why would the teacher have such a smug look? It just doesn't, I don't know, it just didn't make sense. So the subscriber was kind of weirded out by this a little bit. It was like, okay, whatever, right? So sure enough, the subscriber comes at, comes a little early. Comes at 2:20, like 2:39. I'm so dumb. 2:59. The school ends at 3. Oh yeah, 2:30 is the same thing as 3. I'm not a genius sometimes, guys. I'm sorry. Anyways, though, so he comes up like 6 minutes late or early, and he's kind of just waiting there. And he's like, he hears the teacher's on the phone, so he's not going to go in there. He's not going to burst in. One, it seems like the teacher isn't like a huge fan of him. Not that that should really affect his math grade. But at the same time, he's not trying to be rude and interrupt a phone call. But things start to get a little bit strange because the teacher's talking pretty loudly, and she's talking pretty loudly to her friends. And it's not as if the subscriber was intentionally listening in. He wasn't shying away from listening in, like, don't get me wrong, but he also wasn't like pressing his ear up against the door or something. And he's just listening in. And a few words catch his ears or catch his attention. And that's when he starts to realize that she's actually talking about him. So his ears perk up and he gets a little closer to the door. And we're going to call the subscriber Alex for the rest of this video, just for the sake of giving a name. And the teacher's like, yeah, this is her on the phone. She's like, yeah, I got this student called Alex. Like, you know what? He actually got all the problems right. But you know what I gave him? And then a little pause because she's on the phone, so her friends are probably talking back or whatever. And she's like, a 57. And then you can kind of hear this muffled laughter coming from the phone. And Alex is just standing there like, what? Like, are you serious right now? Like, she just admitted that, like, she gave, like, all my answers were correct. So Alex, knowing that, like, now realizing that this was a bit nefarious, takes out his phone and just starts recording, just to, like, figure out. And, like, thank God that Alex has started recording, because what he was about to hear next was so much worse and so much more incriminating that I think genuinely if he went to the principal without proof, there would have been no shot the principal would have believed what Alex was saying. So anyways, the teacher goes on to be like, yeah, like, you know, this Alex kid, like, he's just such a quintessential, like, encapsulation of toxic masculinity. And the subscriber, Alex, is like, bro, what? Yeah, so the teacher goes on to say, basically, that Alex was, like, you know, like handsome, tall, athletic. And Alex is like, yo, is this a roast or is this a compliment list? Is this my Tinder profile right now? Like, what's going on? She basically says that, like, this kid is going to get everything in his life. Like, you know, he's like the quintessential like guy that would like be such like a D-bag in like high school, and that this was like the teacher's opportunity to set things right, to like change how things were going to be, and to basically get revenge that, like, you know, that he represented like everything that men shouldn't be, and that like the bad guy or whatever. And Alex is just like, yo, like, I'm actually not that bad of a guy, but I'm glad you think I'm handsome, I guess. Real quick, if you made it this far into the video, comment door down below. Most of you guys won't get that, but it's a reference to the OGs of the channel. I might be bringing that back as a secret word every once in a while. So yeah, comment door down below in the comment section. If you use Spotify, please make sure to go ahead and listen to these stories on Spotify as well. The link will be in the description and the pinned comment. And if you want to submit these stories, because these are all subscriber-submitted stories, you can do so in two ways. You can go to my Instagram account or my Twitter account. Or both. I don't really care. They're both Connor Pugs, both verified. All you got to do is follow me on there, because I like big numbers next to my name. But then also go to the DMs and send me a DM and write out your story. And I sometimes choose ones from like 9 months ago. So if you don't hear yours in a while, there's a lot. I'm not going to get to all of them, but that's the place to submit them to me. I appreciate all the submissions. I do need the submissions. I mean, I got a lot right now, but it's the reason why this channel, I'm able to post so much. So thank you very much for that. Of course, leave a like in the video to claim your free nothing, as always. With that being said, let's get back to the teacher basically just exposing herself right now. Yeah, so anyways, right, the subscriber is he's just sitting there just aghast at what he's hearing. Like, this is the most ridiculous stuff he's ever heard. And so, sure enough, the teacher continues on, basically explaining to her friends that the reason why she failed him on this exam is not because he did the math wrong, which in a math class, that's normally what decides if you do well or not, like if you do it right. Like, it's very much a yes or no type thing. You can make arguments to say whatever, right? But the reason instead was that he just seemed like the type of guy that would be a jerk and would be a jerk to her, so that she's taking revenge on him. She's, quote unquote, as she then goes on to basically say, in quotes, I'm knocking him down a peg for this. So the girlfriends then go on to basically say, like, oh, well, what do you, like, you said you're meeting with them. And she's like, yeah, I'm meeting with him in a couple minutes, actually, so we got to end the call kind of soon. But they basically go on to say, like, oh, well, then what are you going to tell him? And she's like, oh, I'm just going to say a bunch of math stuff at him, and he's not going to know what's going on. They're like, doesn't he kind of, like, didn't you say he did well? And she's like, yeah, well, I'm just going to, like, try and, like, explain it really confusingly so he doesn't get it and just thinks he actually didn't do well. Like, that'll blow down his self-esteem a little bit. The subscriber's, like, jaw is, like, literally detached at this point. It's on the floor, bro. It's like his mouth could be not more, like, gaping wide open at what's going on. So he keeps recording, and he stops recording and just, like, plays it back. It's pretty crystal clear. So then he goes in, puts on another recording, kind of like hides it, and at, sure enough, 3:05, knocks on the door, and the teacher's like, oh yes, like, come in, I've been expecting you. Yeah, so the subscriber walks in, and sure enough, the teacher is, like, trying to, like, confuse him with big mumbo jumbo words or whatever, and the subscriber keeps saying, like, I checked over my answers, they're all correct, I went online, the question, like, the calculators say that what I'm saying is correct. The teacher's like, well, maybe you input into the wrong calculator. Maybe the calculator is having a bug. Like, dude, do you really think the calculator is glitching out, or do you think your mind is glitching out, teacher? I think your mind is being hacked by the mainframe. Like, teacher basically said, oh, they're hacking the mainframe. That's why you failed. Like, bro, what? Anyways, though, so the subscriber really has no remorse at this point. He is like, oh, okay, well, thank you very much. And he immediately walks over to the principal's office because the rest of the staff stay a little bit later than the teachers do. They close up around 5 because they have other administrative work. So he immediately walks in, and the person at the front desk is like, hey, like we can get you a meeting sometime this week. And the subscriber's like, I got really important stuff. Like, do you have something right now? And the administration person is like, I guess the principal's got like 10 minutes right now. I'll see if you can come in quickly. So the administration person goes in, and principal's like, yeah, sure, whatever, let's get out of the way. So the subscriber sits down, explains the situation, and, the principal's like, well, you should probably go, like, before telling the really bad part, just saying, like, oh, all my answers are right, but she failed me otherwise. The principal is about to he was getting ready to give a very default answer. So the principal is getting ready to be like, okay, well, you should go talk to your teacher. Maybe you did make some mistakes. You're not, like, going over it carefully enough. And that's when the subscriber's like, wait, there's more to the story. So then the subscriber explains the whole experience of the phone call. And the principal's like, at the end of it, it's like, I'm sorry, like, I want to believe you, but that just seems so ridiculous. It just seems so ridiculous. Like, I just can't believe it. I'm sorry. And, at this point, the subscriber's like, well, there's some good news. You actually don't need to believe it. Because I have proof. The subscriber pulls out his recording. I don't know if it's a video or a voice memo, whatever. Either way, the audio was clear enough, and it was pretty obvious of who it was. By the end of it, the principal is just like, no expression, nothing. I think the principal is still processing the fact that that is actually something that was said by someone who was employed by him, right? And the principal's like, oh, like, if I'm being honest, I've never dealt with this before. Yes, eventually the principal's like, hey, can I have a copy of that? Like, can you, like, send that file to me? So sure enough, the file's sent. And, so the subscriber, like, this all happened on Friday. So he goes home, he's there for the weekend. He tells his parents are, like, all upset or whatever. And the subscriber's like, I already reported to the principal. Like, I, like, only get involved if there's, like, a stalemate or something, or just nothing happens, or they don't side with me. But sure enough, by the time the subscriber gets back on Monday, he walks into his math class, and there's a substitute teacher. And at that point, he knew he had won. Finally.